So good afternoon. Yeah. So the last class we discussed about the self, identity, social identity, personal identity and all, right? So let's move on to the how self develop during each stage. So let's understand the stages of human development first. It's starting from infancy, early childhood, middle childhood, early adolescence, late adolescence, then adulthood and old age. Certain stages in human life. So how self develop during infancy, that is the first task. So the first one, that is infancy. So during the time of infancy, it's here we from the birth to 1 year. Okay, here we consider the infancy as one year till 1 year. So here there will be no self awareness or no self recognition for the children, for infants. Clear? No self awareness. And then around 18 months of age, they begin to recognize their own image. Yeah. And they begin to use the personal pronouns. Personal pronouns like I, me, mine, and all. Okay. And during this time, they have no complete sentences. For an example, I need food. They just say I food, or I'm eating, me eating, like that. There will be no complete sentences in that stage. And infants also begin to recognize themselves in photograph at this time. Okay. So learn the development of self during infancy. No self, no self-awareness, personal pronouns, and recognize themselves. Yeah. Try to by heart these three key terms. There is no self-awareness at the time of infancy. Then at the end of the infancy, they begin to recognize themselves by photographs and all. Yeah. If you put a dot in their cheek, if the infant who developed this self-awareness or self-recognition, they will touch that dot in the cheek. Okay. Otherwise, they will play with the mirror. Okay. With that dot in the mirror. Okay. Clear? No self-awareness, they recognize themselves at the end and they begin to use the personal pronouns. Clear?
Who am I? Then for self-esteem, it talks or tells about the description.
Okay. So I'm a student, that belongs to the self concept. I'm a good student, that is an example for the self-esteem. Okay. So next stage after infancy, it's early childhood, right? Early childhood. So they use physical description. So at the time of early childhood, they begin to use the physical descriptions of their self or the material possession to differentiate themselves from others. Okay. So they begin to use the physical descriptions. That is another change when we compare from the infancy. Then they also use descriptive words, like which are the descriptive words? How you describe yourself. I'm tall, I'm short, I'm fair and all. So they begin to use the descriptive words and their self-descriptions are in absolute terms. This means they do not see themselves in comparison with others. Okay. So I'm taller than Sanjana. Yeah. Is it there in this stage or not?
There is no comparison.
No
right?
comparison. That's it. Okay. So they just say I'm tall. Yeah. Then they describe themselves in terms of things they can do. That is the next thing. Like I can ride a bicycle, I can sing a song. What all things they can do. They begin to describe themselves on the basis of their actions. Okay. That is the next concept. So learn the first 3 points. Use physical description. They do not see themselves in comparison with others and they begin to describe themselves and the things they can do. In infancy, they begin to use personal pronouns, but here, early childhood, they describe themselves in the terms of they can do. Sorry, that is a difference between infancy and early childhood. Okay. If you want, just write the key terms for learning. Okay. So another development in early childhood, the self-development, that is their self-descriptions are in concrete terms. We discussed about two terms, right? The absolute and concrete, or abstract and concrete term. Abstract means abstract concepts, abstract drawings,
In a like think in
not
a way
visible,
that
right? Or yeah, other than the senses, abstracting beyond that particular things. Okay, so concrete terms, they define themselves in terms of things they can do or what is visible to them. Okay, concrete, only visible things or only available things to the senses, that is concrete. So here all the concepts are in the concrete form or concrete terms. Then they often overestimate themselves, right? I can sing all the rhymes, yeah, I can tell all the alphabets. Overestimation is there in the early childhood. Then young children are also unable to recognize that they can possess different attributes, like in the same situation or in the same event they can be good or bad. That kind of concept is not there for the early childhood babies. Okay, yeah, so learn the difference between infancy and early childhood. Then let's move on to the another one. Do you have the notes, or otherwise I will?
I have.
Yeah. Finish. Yeah. Can you try, dear?
Ma'am, early childhood,
Ah, both early childhood and infancy. You can start from infancy.
it is an age from birth to 2 years.
Hmm.
There is no self awareness.
Yeah.
They use personal pronouns.
Hmm.
Self recognition of image at the age of 18 months.
Hmm.
Then for early childhood, they use physical descriptions.
Hmm.
Then they use descriptive words.
Hmm.
Their description about themselves are in concrete terms.
Very good.
There is no comparison between others, like she is short, she is tall.
Hmm.
Then they overestimate themselves.
Yeah. Good. So let's move on to the middle childhood. Yeah. So here the self-awareness or self-evaluation is more complex when compared with the infancy or with the early childhood. Okay. Here they begin to describe themselves in internal characteristics, which means other than the physical descriptions, they begin to use internal characters. Yeah. Like I'm good at making friends. Yeah. That kind of concept. Okay, they begin to use internal descriptions about ourselves to describe or to describe ourselves. Clear? Then the child's descriptions include social descriptions and identity, which means they may define themselves in terms of groups. Yeah, I'm a part of group, which means I'm belong to a singers group. Yeah. Then children begin to make social comparisons. The difference between early childhood and middle childhood, that is, in early childhood, they have no comparisons. Yeah. Here, middle childhood, they begin to compare with others. I'm taller than Sanjana. I'm taller than other person. Okay. Yeah. That is another change. Then they begin to distinguish between real self and ideal self. Yeah, there is no real and ideal self. They begin to distinguish between real and ideal self. Okay, and their concepts become more realistic. During the time of middle childhood, their concept or all the thoughts, their ideas, everything in a realistic way. Clear? So they have social comparisons. They have the ability to distinguish between real self and ideal self, more realistic, and they describe themselves as in a part of a group, then internal characteristics. Okay, middle childhood. Yeah, about the adolescence. What about the adolescents? Here you can see that they have this ideal self and real self. Okay, their ideal self and real self become more prominent at this time, and they have a fluctuating sense of self, which means sometimes it increase, another case it decrease, an increase or decrease in the self, a fluctuating self. Then self during adolescence carry several contradictions, which means they describe themselves in different ways. Like I'm quiet but also talkative, two different concepts, right? So they begin to use these kind of contradictions in their words. Then yeah, here the another change, that is the concept are in abstract. Abstract means other than this visible things, right? Yeah. So they may describe themselves as quiet, sensitive, brave, emotional. We can't measure the emotions or we can't assess the quiet or sensitive, that kind of feelings. Everything internal feelings, right? Yeah, that comes under the abstract part. So learn the middle childhood and adolescence, that how self developed during middle childhood and adolescence. Yeah, we'll show the middle one. Yeah.
Ma'am, but in textbook there are like different concepts now for this early childhood.
This much is
Should
there.
we learn?
No. NCRT textbook is also important for you. Yeah. Okay. Actually, I sent it a PDF today, right? The
Yes,
influences
ma'am.
and identity, the four things, emotional changes. Okay, so go through that. Finish.
Ma'am, for that early childhood, can you read that third point? I think.
Early childhood or middle childhood?
Sorry, middle childhood.
Yeah. Children begin to make social comparisons, right? Yeah. Children begin to make social comparisons and differentiate themselves from others in comparative rather than absolute terms. It simply means that they begin to compare their self with others, okay, in more
No,
complex
ma'am. The
way.
other point, the descriptions include social.
The child's descriptions include social descriptions and identity, right? Yeah, that just means in earlier stage, in early childhood, they describe themselves on the basis of what they can do and all. Here, they begin to describe themselves in the terms of a social groups. Like I'm an Indian, yeah, I belong to this school, I'm in this music choir in school. Yeah, so you consider yourself in a group. And then you started to describe. Okay, that is this child's descriptions include social descriptions and identity. Okay, what is identity? Exact meaning. Okay, finish. I only need the key concepts. Okay. Yeah.
For middle childhood, they describe themselves in internal characteristics. Then descriptions include social descriptions and identity. Then they start comparison between others. Then they can distinguish between real and ideal self.
Very good. Yeah.
The concepts of them self concept becomes more realistic.
Fine. Okay. I'll give a question for you. Okay. This is a question from 2019-20. Okay. Please write. Okay. I think it's better to write another side of book. Okay. So I'll get a number of questions. Describe three cognitive changes. Describe three cognitive changes you observe in adolescence. Describe three cognitive changes you observe in adolescence. Analyze the impact of these changes. Analyze the impact of these changes. Analyze the impact of these changes on the identity of adolescents. I'll repeat. Describe three cognitive changes you observe in adolescence. Analyze the impact of these changes on the identity of adolescents. Okay? Write the answers. Cognitive development in adolescence. Yeah. So answer cognitive development in adolescence are cognitive development in adolescence are abstract thinking, logical thinking, systematic thinking, abstract, logical, systematic thinking, critical thinking. Okay. So this is an answer for describe three cognitive changes you observe in adolescence. Okay. So question B, impact on identity formation, right? The answer, extremely self-conscious, extremely sensitive, good in social matters, good in social matters, make their own rule, make their own rule. Okay. Any doubts?
Ma'am, can you repeat the last answer?
Make
Make their
their own rule. Yeah. There are certain norms and values and all, right? Next question. Identify any five different stressors. Identify any five different stressors, which means stress, okay, stressors in the life of +1 student. Okay. So and again, the question from 2019-20 final exam, okay, board exam. Identify any five different stressors in the life of class +1 student. Discuss any five skill. Discuss any five skills which he or she discuss any five skills which he or she can can use to combat with that stress. Discuss any five skills which he or she can use to combat with that stress. Yeah. Right. Stressors, that is body image, stressors. Okay. Body image, academic pressure, peer pressure, parental pressure, academic pressure, peer pressure, parental pressure, body image, and emotional changes. These are the common stressors. Okay. body image, academic pressure, peer pressure, parental pressure, and emotional changes. Next, skills required to combat the stress: relaxation, exercise. Yeah, exercise. First point, exercise. Self care, time management, healthy diet. Exercise, self care, healthy diet, and time management. Okay. So you have to submit an assignment, okay, from the 6 chapters. I'll give the topic for that. Factors that influencing the identity. You just write in an A4 sheet and submit, okay? Only the important points. Maximum 3 pages, okay? So first assignment, factors that influencing identity, okay? With a front page and you can start write. So include emotional, social and all, only the important points.
And when should we submit?
Next week? Yeah. Next Monday. Yeah. So let's continue. Okay. So another sure question, that why adolescence is a critical time for identity development. We all know that during the time of adolescence, we have number of changes, physical, emotional, social and all. Okay. All these leads to the problems in the identity formation or for the identity formation of an adolescent girl or a boy. So it is very important to include the psychologist Eric Erikson. Okay, so he developed the psychosocial theory with 8 stages. Okay, so 8 stages psychosocial theory by Eric Erikson. So the first stage, that is trust versus mistrust. Okay, here the fifth stage of Erik Erikson theory of psychosocial development, that is identity versus role confusion. That is the main problem during the time of adolescence. Why they face this identity crisis. Okay, he explained well in this stage, identity versus role confusion. So during this stage, adolescents search for a sense of self and personal identity. Okay, that is the main reason. If they fail, it will lead to role confusion. Otherwise, there will be no problem. Okay, yeah. Erikson claims that the adolescent may feel uncomfortable about their body for a while until they can adapt and grow into that changes. Yeah, due to some physical changes and all. Yeah, somebody who has failed to establish a sense of identity, that can lead to the role confusion. That is very important. Yeah, that's it. And other than this, the environment also put a lot of pressure in adolescence. That also leads to the identity problems. The emotional include all these points. Okay. Eric Erikson, the psychologist, and how these emotional changes influence the identity, how the cognitive factors that influence the identity formation and all. Okay. So who put forward psychosocial theory?
Eric H. Erikson.
Very good. Yeah. Another question, please write. Two possible reasons Two possible reasons for extreme depression. Okay. Two possible reasons for extreme depression in a 16-year-old boy. Two possible reasons for extreme depression in a 16-year-old boy can be dash and dash. Peer pressure and academic demands. Okay, this is my answer. Yeah. Peer pressure and academic demands. Two possible reasons for extreme depression in classmate, that is peer pressure and academic demands. Okay. Yeah. So first factor that influence our identity formation, that is physical changes, our biological changes or our body changes, right? So the most important concept, that is growth spurt. SPURT. Okay. Yeah. So what is growth spurt, Sanjana?
The rapid acceleration in height and weight.
Very good. The rapid acceleration in height and weight, which means rapid increase or the sudden increase in height as well as in weight, that is called as a term growth spurt. Okay. Yeah. Then include the difference of weight and height. The girls gain height at a slower rate when compared with boys, and girls start looking like a woman. Okay, that is another difference here. Then internal development. Certain internal organs are developing at the time of adolescence. Okay, so first one, digestive system develop, liver increases, lung capacity, our breathing capacity also increases, stomach become longer, not broader, it's become longer. Then endocrine glands become more active and start secreting sex hormones. Okay, these are the certain internal development or internal changes or the physical changes during the time of adolescence. Endocrine gland become more active and start secreting sex hormones. Okay. Now the sure question, what is the function of endocrine gland? Yeah, they usually produce the chemical messengers that is called as hormones. So main function of the endocrine gland, that is to produce the hormones, and they travel through the blood to the other parts of the body. Okay. And it also control our mood, growth and development. Clear? Endocrine glands. Then, so learn the internal development. Digestive system, liver, lungs, stomach and endocrine glands. Yeah. Can you try?
The endocrine glands secrete hormones.
Hmm.
Then the capacity of lungs increases. The stomach becomes not broad, long.
Very good. Longer. Yeah.
Then liver weight increase.
Not the weight, liver capacity. Okay. Yeah. It's different. Then the sure question. What is menopause, menarche and puberty? Okay. 4:30. So puberty. What is puberty, Sanjana? Read. Read puberty, menarche and menopause. Read aloud.
The time when sexual maturity is reached is called puberty. The puberty is the stage of human development when the body becomes capable of reproduction.
So during the time of puberty, their body become capable to start reproducing, okay, or reproduction. And this is a time when sexual maturity is reached. That is why we call as a puberty, puberty. Yeah. Then menarche, which means the first occurrence of the menstruation, the first stage. Yeah. Then that leads to the sexual maturity for girls, this menarche. Menopause, which means it's an end of that menstruation, usually after 50 years. Okay. Puberty, menarche, and menopause. Learn. The time when sexual maturity is reached. Okay, that is puberty. Fine. Try.
The time when sexual maturity is reached is called puberty.
Pubescence. Menarche.
Menarche is the starting period.
Pubescence just means the process of that menstruation or sexual maturity, that is pubescence. Okay, menarche, the first menstruation. Yeah, menopause.
The
Done
last
the spellings. Okay,
menstruation.
menarche, menopause, and all. Yeah, next thing, next biological or physical change, that is primary characteristics, or there are certain primary sex characteristics, change in primary sex characteristics and secondary sex characteristics. So, what is this primary sex characteristics? The changes that is directly involved with the parts that we use for reproduction. Okay, that is primary sex characteristic. Secondary means not involved with the reproduction. There are certain things, right? So chest become broad, hips become narrow. In the case of female, their hips become broad, hair grows on the body parts, the pubic areas, and voice become deep. In the case of female, their voice become melodious. These are the secondary characteristics, okay, commonly seen in male and female. Then in the case of primary sex characteristic, their penis, in our case, our cervix, fallopian tube, all starts developing. Okay, that is the main change. Yeah, learn. Only the secondary sex characteristics. Fine? Yeah. Am I fast? No. Yeah. Try. Secondary. Any 3 points? Any three differences?
For male, their voice becomes more harsh.
More hard. Yeah. Then
Then for female, it becomes sweet and melodious. Then growth of hair
pubic area.
in
Both
pubic
cases.
hair.
Yeah.
Then men gain muscle strength and stamina.
What
For
about hip?
girls, the hip becomes broad,
In their case, hips become narrow.
narrow.
Yeah. So rest we will discuss in the next. Yeah. Not next class. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah. Start
Thank you.
doing the assignments. Yeah.